Hey, YouTube, let's do this.
Well, they say I should approach you with caution, but not to let you be aware of my fear. Never know what you'll find. Don't understand your kind round here. I'm watching your moves, they look so radical. Hearing your words, they sound fanatical. Something inside reveals you're magical. How can I get enough? You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I've got to follow. They've been trying to stick a line in your system, analyzing the defenses you hold, trying to open wide, hoping to step inside your soul. But everything here is unfamiliar. Nothing they've seen remotely similar. How can it be you're so peculiar? How can I get enough? You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I've got to follow. I've got to follow. I've got to follow. How can I get enough? You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I got to follow. Oh, I'm in the spiritus. Wow. Oh, you're a strange animal, that's what I know. You're a strange animal, I got to follow. You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I got to follow. Oh, I'm in the spiritus. Oh, you're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I got to follow.
And hey, everybody, welcome to Squatch Talk. I'm Pat. How you guys doing tonight? Thanks for being here, guys and gals, I should say. What's going on? Glad you're here, man. We got a good show for you tonight. Got a great guest. I'm going to bring him in here in a second. We got a government agent on the show tonight. And just like a disclaimer right up front, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be dishonest or throw people off, using thumbnails and whatnot. But this is not a Black Ops kill story. This is not there's no story here about, dragging a dead Sasquatch into a Black Ops area for study or anything like that. This is not what this is about. This is just a discussion with somebody who's in law enforcement in Bigfoot heavy area, and we're just going to go down that road and have that discussion and see where it goes. So I'm going to bring him in right now. I'm going to bring in Drew, and we'll just kind of kick things off here. All right. Hey, Drew, what's up? Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how's it going, man? Hey, thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, man. This is a discussion. This is kind of a discussion I've been wanting to have for a long time, man. It covers a new base for me and the audience, I think. So thanks for being here, man.
No, thank you.
Awesome. So let's just jump right in, man, to sort of who you are and your experience, your background, your law enforcement background, and what you took part of and in your whole involvement. You don't have to get too deep in the weeds about it, but just kind of a quick rundown, man, of your background and experience with law enforcement.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Northern California. After high school, I joined the military. After doing 4 years there, I used the GI Bill, went to college, graduated, and joined the California Department of Justice as a special agent. I was assigned over to various units throughout my 20-year career there, anywhere from every kind of narcotics team to a firearms team. And during that entire time, I did work camp. Basically, camp is the it's a anti-marijuana team.
Anti-grow, right? So
it's an anti-grow team. It's an eradication team. It also has an investigative component to it. It's not a full-time position. You get released from your field office around April through November, so it's not year-round.
Is that because of the growing season? Sorry, I don't know a lot about growing pot. Forgive my
right. Exactly, it's because of the growing season, okay. And that usually is anywhere from April to November. The initial planting season usually occurs in April to May. The harvest season usually towards October.
Okay.
Towards October. And so it's, I don't want to say it's a part-time position, but it's a volunteer position. Just kind of break the monotony of the field office. So I worked 3 seasons up in Northern California, usually in the, Humboldt, Mendocino, Trinity, Shasta County, Siskiyou County, Lassen County, Modoc County, Plumas County, Tehama County. So there were other teams that were assigned to the Central California and teams assigned to Southern California. So they usually try to keep you where geographically you live. It makes the family life a whole lot better.
Sure.
And yeah, ended up retiring 4 years ago. So yeah.
All right. So you did what? You did what? 20 in California DOJ, basically.
Correct. I did 20. And
All
that
right.
is state agency. That is not federal DOJ. So it's California DOJ.
Right. So let's be. Also, I think we need to make it very important to the audience. Important factor is that your role in that as a California DOJ agent was on with Joint Task Force.
Correct. Camp was made up of, it was a multi-agency task force made up of basically federal money managed by the state and manned by every alphabet agency you can think of. The only agency that did not participate was the FBI.
Right.
Every other agency I can think of at some time or another did participate. The personnel that participated heavily was the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management.
BLM.
Yeah, BLM, California Fish and Game, the Federal Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, the California Park Service.
So some other state people from a different agency as well, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I would say that the California Wildlife Service was probably the biggest participant, other than DOJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. And did you guys ever have to work with local law enforcement, sheriff's departments?
Oh yeah. Actually, you could say that the local sheriff's departments that had the marijuana teams, which at that time everybody had a marijuana team, they were the key to giving us the information where these marijuana grows were at. Because I mean, they're local, they know what's going on in their county, so they were the key to locating these marijuana grows, along with the local U.S. Forest Service guys, the Rangers and the BLM guys were in the areas. They did have BLM land, but the locals were the key to these operations because they know their area. They know what's going on. We basically supplied the money, the equipment, and the personnel. But without them, these operations could not take place.
Right. So it's the money. It's federal money. And it just okay. As we go along here, I just want to tell the audience right now is like I'm trying to be very thorough in how we set up what this whole camp thing was about. That it was a multi-agency joint task force, and everyone that was involved, where the money came from. Like I think it's very important to set that up right up front and to understand Drew's role in that as a state DOJ guy. So I just want to set it up properly before we kind of start getting into the weeds, if you will. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? Just to clear things up, CAMPS stood for Campaign Against Marijuana Planting.
Yes. And so two more things I want to. Okay, so a lot of the feds, it seems almost all the feds fell under the Department of Interior, because they have like 1,000 agencies in the Department of Interior. And like you said, the FBI wasn't involved, which that makes perfect sense to me, actually. So a lot of different agencies from the Department of Interior, some different agencies from state, all the way down to local sheriffs, but also every now and then for support, there would be some National Guard involved, right? California.
Yeah, correct. The National Guard had a unit called the Counter Drug Unit, and they were a very important support unit, providing a lot of aviation assets and a lot of equipment support, and basically a lot of young guys to cut down marijuana.
Yeah, muscle. Yeah,
like a lot of muscle.
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of young muscle to hack and stack marijuana, because most of the agents were not in their late teens or early 20s. And let me tell you, when you have some young guys like that, man, it makes the day a whole lot easier.
Sure. So I just want to be, I wanted to go ahead again and address that right up front and be very clear about it. So the National Guard, which is technically military in a way, right? Even though it's California National Guard, I mean, there's a lot that could be talked about with that, but people think military, and yes, they are military. So the military is involved, but the National Guard was pretty much only there as a support role. Is that fair to say?
That is correct. Support role. They could not initiate an operation. They could not arrest anyone.
Correct.
Without having a California law enforcement officer with them. They have no arrest powers at all.
Posse comitatus.
Yes.
Yes. The military cannot arrest a U.S. citizen unless they're on foreign land.
Right.
And even that's debatable, right?
Yeah, even that's debatable. And also, if we took one of their aviation assets to conduct any type of surveillance, they could not do it by themselves. They would have to have a California law enforcement officer with them. They could not go out by themselves and do any type of surveillance by themselves.
Right. So at least one California law enforcement officer had to be in the chopper.
Oh, absolutely. Or otherwise the chopper did not fly for a recon mission.
There you go. And they were Blackhawks, weren't they?
We had Blackhawks. We had Kiowas. Once in a while we had a Chinook, but the Chinook was strictly for cargo. Yeah. But for surveillance, for surveillance purposes, it was only the Kiowas, which usually was for daytime surveillance, and the Blackhawks were the other ones for other times of the day. And there were also fixed wing assets too. Mm-hmm. National Guard, and they had probably, let's say, a more sophisticated array of sensors that flew. But again, you had to have a California law enforcement officer with them.
Sure. Right. So, well, do I dare ask? You could say no comment. That's fine. Do I dare ask? Were there any armed Reaper drones involved?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No Apache gunships either. No.
Okay.
Again, that falls under the prohibition of any type of military armed intervention on domestic soil.
Right, posse comitatus.
Yes, posse comitatus.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I just wanted to make that clear because even bringing up the National Guard provokes thought to the military, and I just wanted to kind of squash that bug before it ever like took off. Right? Is
Right.
that this is all actually legal? It happens every day. The same thing also happens to save your ass. So if you ever get plucked off a rooftop from a flood or something by a Black Hawk helicopter from the National Guard, it's the exact same thing going on. It's a joint task force rescue mission, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's let's not. I'm just trying to keep people's minds from wandering into fantasy land, even though like somebody will. But I'm just trying to keep the conversation legit and match reality. Okay, so that's your experience. You did that kind of thing, and oh, by the way, one of the counties you rattled off, because I'm not expert in the geography or the county up there. I just know Northern California is where the PG film was shot. Is one of the counties you worked in the county where the PG film was shot?
That is correct. Yeah, that is Humboldt County.
Humboldt. Okay. All right. So you're in the thick of it up there, so to speak. So it was kind of I would imagine it's a mix of stuff that you did. Like there was a lot of boots on the ground things. It seemed to me, because you and I have talked a little bit. You sent me some pictures. So sometimes you guys would like set up camp, right? Boots on the ground camps.
Oh yeah, we would set up a lot of game camps and a lot of different other type of sensors out there.
But you would also physically camp there, right? Or in areas.
Yes.
Set up your tents, right? And so you're conducting operations literally out there in the woods with like tents and like sort of camps, remote camps.
Yeah, pretty remote camps. Most of the time, the camps were not as clandestine as people would like to think, because most of the time we had to have enough space to land helicopters and refuel helicopters. So it wasn't as as clandestine you would think, or remote. We would use that as a base to fly out to the locations. We would put out once in a while observation teams in remote areas with a lot of different type of optical equipment. But for most of all, we usually had to find a pretty big space to accommodate fuel, maintenance, and helicopters. So.
Okay, so a lot of this stuff is going on in what I think a lot of people would agree is Bigfoot country. I mean, especially when we're talking about Humboldt, where the PG film was shot, right? Like that's sort of the Mecca. That's the Mecca location to go visit, which is silly to me, but whatever. But yeah, like Bigfoot country. And and so now we've got these counties that are considered Bigfoot country counties, and I don't want to say there's a swarm, but there's certainly an effort of people and technology and in all three dimensions, trying to find something out there, which obviously is marijuana grow.
Correct.
So that's kind of an interesting thought for me to ponder. Of course, they're not out there looking for Bigfoot. And can you confirm that? Like, can we just confirm that? Like that there's no information that you've ever received that, hey, today we're looking for Bigfoot. That never happened to you, right?
No, not at all. It's funny because some of the briefings we would have would be given by usually the Forest Service personnel or about what was out there wildlife wise, anything that could hurt you, kind of like poison oak or anything that would be of any type of hazard, because we did have people from metropolitan areas that have never been in the woods. So there was always a briefing done on some of the dangers out in the woods. And, you know, you would have your typical mountain lions, bears, poison oak, booby traps, you know, just items like that. And not one time did they bring up a picture of a Sasquatch.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely wanted to go ahead and address that again up front. And again, I mean, you play your role in all this, but you're kind of, I mean, you're in the thick of it. Like I said, you got to be on the Blackhawks, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, you're doing some cool, sexy stuff. You're probably armed with you know, good weapons with good ammunition. I would imagine, you know, most of the
Yes.
time, if not always,
Yes.
you know. So yeah, you're an armed agent. You get to fly in helicopters. You have to interact with you know, some pretty badass people once in a while, I would imagine. And so I'm gonna say you're in the mix.
Right. Right. It's a lot more. It's a lot more exciting on TV than it is in reality. Because after you do the raids to hopefully arrest some of the suspects, the rest of the day is just manual labor, hacking and stacking plants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Somebody's got to do it. And, oh, you guys are there. So
right.
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like maybe 5 minutes of really cool action, and the rest of the day is just manual labor.
Gotcha. So I want to ask you about this because I did briefly touch on it with you in our private conversation, but obviously, I mean, you're familiar with the documentary that came out somewhat recently called Sasquatch.
Yes.
Right. So just to refresh to the audience, it came out on Netflix or Hulu. I can't remember which, maybe Amazon. I can't remember which platform it originated on. You can find it. It's just called Sasquatch. And it was basically about a dude in Northern California who happened to witness a pretty incredible conversation in the 90s in and around a grow field about two guys getting killed by a Bigfoot. And that stuck with him his whole life. And he went and reinvestigated it as a journalist. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but it wasn't Bigfoot. Okay. But the fascinating thing is that it dealt with the whole grow, the grow operations in Northern California. And that fascinated the hell out of me because it seemed like a lot of the private land stuff nobody wanted to touch or deal with. It was almost allowed in I would say in some ways.
Right. And you know what's funny? The private land stuff, camp did not deal with at all. That was usually by the local sheriff's department's marijuana teams mixed in sometimes with DEA, but camp did not deal with that at all. The reason why is that was more of a investigative type of activity that took time, and you cannot fly any type of reconnaissance mission over private land without some type of court order.
Interesting.
So,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Okay.
you just can't turn on the FLIR camera and fly around the mountains knowing that there's private land down there and base your operation on that without a court order. No judge is going to give you a search warrant to raid that place off evidence that you gathered by you just flying around, gathering intel without a court order. So as far as camp,
That's
no,
interesting. Yeah.
we didn't deal with any any private land investigations, strictly public.
Right, because there's too many constitutional roadblocks, I would say, for lack of a better term, as opposed to flying around national forests or state forests where you literally own the land, like you know what I mean, like you have free reign to be law
Correct.
enforcement in national or state forests, as opposed to private land. There's way bunch of constitutional roadblocks there,
Right. Yeah. A lot of Fourth Amendment issues there on private land
which
and in the
I'm
forest.
fine with, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. I'm totally so. Yeah, it was an interesting documentary that guy put together, but it really opened my eyes to the culture of that area and just how much marijuana was going on there for so long. And there was another documentary I want to say that came out dealing with some of that too.
Was it Murder Mountain?
Murder? Maybe. I think it was.
Yeah, in Humboldt County.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that's exactly what I was thinking of, man, and that was very eye opening. Just how things have been working up there for decades. So it kind of surprised me, man, when you like drew my attention to the camp thing, and I'm weighing it against these documentaries I'm seeing, but the private versus public land is obviously that's the disconnect there. That's sort of the cutoff point, you know.
Yeah, and on Murder Mountain in Humboldt County, as you saw in the documentary, it was strictly the sheriff's department's marijuana team, and once in a while you'll get the DEA to come in, but it's strictly a local issue there, and there's a lot of missing people up there, and it's mainly because of the drug business.
Yeah, they revealed some stuff to me. I mean, me and Squatch Bait watched that together, and we were like, "How much do you get paid to sit there all day and separate the bud from the plant?" Like, we couldn't believe it. It wasn't a lot of money, that those people make, and so it's like, and a lot of them are immigrants, probably illegal immigrants or otherwise, maybe, but
it's funny. On public lands, it is 99%. I would say probably almost. I would be safe saying 100% Mexican national illegals that are tending to these grows on public lands.
Yeah, and sometimes it's only like one poor guy, right? Like guarding the whole grow.
Yeah, you know what? It depends on the size of the grow. There's usually a decent crew there because you have to attend to the plants. You have to make sure the plants are being watered. You have to make sure nobody's leaving with product. So typically there is a supervisor, and he's the only one that is armed, and the rest are just workers. So it depends on the size. You usually have a pretty good crew up there because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to tend to thousands and thousands of plants. And it usually takes a pretty good network for organization because you need to resupply these guys. weekly or bi-weekly with just food and equipment up there. So it's quite an operation for sure.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
On any of the bus that you were ever involved in out there in the camp operations, did you guys ever once find a monkey suit or a Bigfoot, let's call it a Bigfoot costume or anything like that could be determined to be the tactic to keep civilians away from their grow? Did you guys ever find any kind of Bigfoot costume at any of these places?
I can only speak for the area I was working, but the answer is no.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I that's what I meant. I meant you personally, or maybe anything you ever heard, but especially you personally. All right. So you never found a Bigfoot costume where they were trying to boogity boo boo scare people away if they came too close, right?
No, never. I never even heard of a rumor of one. And if they did find something like that, we always kept in touch with the other teams in California. So that would have definitely been a topic of conversation at some time.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing that I found, not the one thing, but a very interesting thing about that whole Sasquatch documentary was that guy hearing that story in the 90s. And it was clearly a story of something like a Bigfoot killing two guys, and it is kind of interesting that was used for whatever reason. I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's built into the culture there in the mountains, and they just used it as kind of a scary thing,
Yeah, sure. To a culture of people that weren't, like, what it ended up being was towards a culture of people that were not, from Northern California. They were from south of the border. And so maybe it was even more effective in that way, just culturally.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so yeah, man, let's talk, let's shift gears a little bit and talk technology to, whatever levels we can. I mean, so, I think the Blackhawks and the what were they called? I'm not familiar with the other helicopter. I mean, the Chinook I know, but
the Chinooks, the Jet Rangers, which were the Kiowas.
The Kiowas, yeah. And they're those are smaller, right, than the Blackhawks.
Yeah, usually we use those for daytime low level recon runs.
Right. And so, but especially the Blackhawks, and so there was a lot of aerial thermal technology involved. I think it's fair to say.
Correct.
Yeah. So these helicopters were fitted with fairly advanced military grade technology, and they're literally looking for something, or maybe even people near something. That something being the, obviously the grow operation. And so you guys kind of knew the right sort of environments. I mean, obviously, I guess water had to be close by, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the key thing to any reconnaissance to locate these grows was water.
Right.
Because the plants need a lot of water. So it's not like we went and scanned the whole forest. I mean, we stuck to water resources and the areas around it. And it's easy to it's easy to spot individuals working on the grows, uh, even in remote areas, because it's going to be obvious, you know.
Yeah.
Um, what are people doing in this park, especially when there's no roads or kind of a camping area or a recreational area? So
Yeah.
um, that was kind of easy. And at night, you always kind of knew because they all had flashlights and you could spot those.
Oh yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good call on that. They're not walking around in the woods without some kind of help, like with a light source.
right, right. And remember, these guys were out there from like April to end of October, early November. So they stayed out there in some pretty remote areas. The areas are so remote. That's why we needed helicopters to chopper in, because there was no roads anywhere near these places. I mean, you got to hand it to these guys, man. They hiked in all that water line, the fertilizer, the tools, the tents. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy to see the amount of labor involved in setting up one of these grows. I mean, just incredible, you know,
Well,
just
sure.
incredible.
I mean, and who knows what those mules basically get paid, right? They probably make good money in their mind, but like at the end of the day, out of a successful grow, what somebody's going to make, what 5 mil, or a couple of mil, or even if it's what $800,000, you make that happen, you know, you're set for a minute, right?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And especially if they take it back to Mexico, I mean, that money is worth even more.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, the motivation's totally there. But yeah, so I mean, you got these pretty advanced assets in the air. You even have there's boots on the ground people. So there's and plus you have the growers themselves, right, who are out in these areas. And I don't know, man. I mean, that's a lot going on, but it's not everything. It's not like every square inch is being watched or managed or you know looked at, whatever. But still, that's a pretty major operation to be going on in Bigfoot country. And I don't know, no Bigfoots come out of that, as far as you know.
Yeah, you know what? The entire time I was assigned to camp, I never saw or heard anything related to Bigfoot. Nothing was picked up that was unusual on the equipment we had out there. Let me tell you, we picked up every type of wildlife you can think of. I mean, every little. I mean, from squirrels to bears, lots of bears and lots of deer for sure.
Right.
Mountain lions, every type of wildlife you can think of, except that elusive, Sasquatch. So no, and I never heard of a rumor of anything Bigfoot at all.
Hmm. But I guess, I mean, at some point in your life, like you have some kind of interest in the Bigfoot phenomena. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you could say it started back when I was a kid, watching In Search Of and that scary music they had. And wow, what was the other documentary? Mysterious Monsters. I don't know if you ever saw that 1970s documentary, Mysterious Monsters.
I don't recall it. No.
Yeah. Um, that kind of sparked my interest. And I've always wondered, you know, it was always, I always wondered about that.
Mm.
And being assigned up to Northern California, I just started inquiring about it. It's like, I wonder if there's more to it here, that some type of official government agency has anything or knowledge of it. So I just started inquiring and asking questions.
Okay. And what kind of answers did you get?
You know, I didn't get anything. Um, I got everything from a laugh to like, I mean, I hate to say it, but nothing, you know. And I had access to a lot of databases that I
Mhm.
inquired to, and I did not find anything. Um, what I did find was a lot of suspects at one time or another were nicknamed Bigfoot or Sasquatch,
Hmm.
you know, as
Okay.
nicknames.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just
Okay.
because the guys were big or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
But
the culture of that area.
yeah,
You
of
know.
that area. But I mean, I did not find anything, and I asked a bunch of guys from all the different
Mhm.
agencies. You know, I mean, could have they been not truthful to me? Of course, you know.
Sure.
But from what I gathered, I didn't find anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, I commend you for even asking, because yeah, whatever. I mean, the professionalism that's involved in these kinds of things, man, like to kind of go shoot off in that direction could either get you ridicule or maybe even you know, a little smackdown. Like, why are you asking about whatever from a supervisor or whatever, um, just unwanted, attention. Um,
Yeah, you know what? I worded it in a way that wasn't very direct. I would say, "Hey, what do you make of these reports out there?" Or I would say, "Hey, did you ever see anything or hear anything strange?" You know,
right.
especially towards some of the so some of the rangers that were assigned to that area over a long time, or specifically the deputies that worked that county every
Mm,
day.
yeah.
So, you know, and I knew some of the Hoopa Native American reservation cops there too, which is really close to the PG site.
Hmm.
And I used to ask them, and they would say, "Well, that's just a big myth. It's just it's a it's more of a spirit type of entity." That's what I gathered from those guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So actual Native Americans kind of almost poo pooing on it.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
these were the tribal police guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
um, yeah. There's oh, he goes, no, that's just kind of a spiritual animal. From our heritage. You know.
No. Yeah. I mean it. I mean, forgive me, man. The point I want to make about that is it's not reflecting on you. You're just giving me your anecdotal account of dealing with whatever those guys, right? The only point I personally want to make off that is, in the Bigfoot world, it seems to be this unanimous thing of, well, every single Native American on the planet says they're real, therefore they're real. And so I find that interesting, that you're dealing with tribal police who are basically saying the opposite. They're kind of going, it's just myth, you know. They're telling a different story, and I think that's an interesting point to make.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's just my point. Again, not reflecting on you, and that's just your experience you're telling me about. So, um, So I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I say it's, there's some kind of presence, obviously, in these areas that law enforcement have with advanced technology. I mean, do you have an opinion on how that reflects on the phenomena of why it seems to not have shown up on your end, sort of across the board, even asking about it? I mean, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, and this is just my opinion. I think, I mean, I'll put it out there right now. I don't think, based on my personal dealings and what I've found out or experienced, I mean, this is not a popular opinion, but at this point, I don't think that the animal exists. And this is just my personal opinion, you know? And um, I just haven't seen any type of evidence out there, you know? But again, I have this very narrow view of what I experienced during these operations.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair. But I do think it's important to point out that these kind of operations have been happening throughout the decades, really, right? I mean, camp's been around since what, the 80s?
Yeah, since
Um,
the 80s, for sure.
yeah. So it is a little odd to me, and we, maybe you and I both don't know what we don't know. Maybe there was an incident. Maybe there was something that happened. And hell, maybe that maybe that guy operating the thermal camera that night just said, "I'm just gonna let that go," and never even said anything, right? I mean,
True.
there's all kinds of variables with operations like that. Um, that there could have been something that we just don't know about. But at the end of the day, uh, you know, there's there's no good information that comes out of what is a pretty thorough search of something, and my point is that there's highly advanced things searching for something, and there's never been a Bigfoot report out of that yet. A researcher can walk in the woods this weekend and come out with an encounter story or something, you know something's not adding up on my scales there, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, at this point, I mean, all we have is stories, I
Pretty
mean,
much.
just stories.
I mean, I think we've got more than that, although it's not good enough, you know. We do. I mean, the PG film to me is fairly conclusive, to me personally. um we do have it, we have tracks, trace evidence. It's not good enough, but it is some form of evidence. So we do have more than stories, but the stories themselves and their high volume, that the sheer volume of stories and the consistency within them, that's what's compelling for me to say there's definitely a phenomena happening here. But no one has yet to answer like what that is. If
No,
you feel
I totally agree with you. And the problem I have with stories is that what I've learned is that, man, people are really, really good at making up shit. I mean,
Sure.
I've met some I've interviewed, investigated some really good liars, you know?
Sure.
And man, I've never I mean, I'm impressed by the amount of BS people can make up. you know, and they're super good at it. And that makes me a little leery about that many stories, you know. It's just and for some reason certain areas have some of the best, you know. um, that's why I'm a little leery about some of the stories out there. It's just so I mean, sooner or later stories are great, but man, how long has it been? You got to give us more than stories.
Well, I certainly agree with that. Like we have to get better than the stories. I'm still in a place, Drew, that the stories mean something to me. Um, I just know too many people on a very personal level that have like pretty, up close and personal stories that are compelling to me, and I trust these people 100%, pretty or virtually 100%, right? As close as you
Mhm.
can get to it. Um,
Correct.
and I got to think what's going on there, like, and then I start adding it up with tens of thousands of documented accounts, and I'm like, you- okay, if we have a club of liars, why are they all lying about the same thing? Why do they all describe the same thing? Again, nobody's not not even a psychologist has been able to write up a scientific paper that explains any of that makes any kind of sense, even in theory. So, like, as far as the stories go, um, nobody has been able to explain why or how people are making up stories from all different parts of the country that make any kind of sense, even on a psychological level. Um, to me, it's kind of the opposite side of the coin is the most likely thing. These experiences are happening to people, and that's what we need to figure out. I'm not really in any place where I'm dealing with 30,000 liars. And I feel like they would all kind of have to be in collusion with each other. And that in and of itself would be interesting, right? So that almost a conspiracy, that would be a conspiracy going on. I'm just not there because I know too many of these people.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. The problem I have with the PG film is that the best we have in over 50 years?
I have the same problem, Drew.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Um,
come on. I mean, what are the chances and probability that is the best we have? You know?
yeah, and the only decent answer I can give to that is it's sort of a two-parter, maybe a three-parter. It was a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm. So it was sort of an anomaly in a way that statistically should happen, but part of that anomaly involved two guys that were spent 2 weeks in that remote wilderness actually looking for evidence on horseback. And I don't think that's been replicated since then. And as far as the horseback part, um, so I don't know, man. But I agree with you that that is the best we have in 53 years, going on 54.
Yeah.
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 And so I sort of did a flip the script, like knowing that's the case. I always flip the script. So there has to be a reason for that. You know, there has to be a reason. And so, the reason that I came up with is that, that technique is just, it's a shot in the dark. It's a 1 in a million chance. The technique is wrong. You're not going to outclass them. These things are always going to have the advantage. You'll never outclass them to go marching around in the woods That's why we can't get that result, is because they own us out there. And so therefore, logic dictates you have to use a different tactic, and nobody's doing that, or very few. Like almost virtually no one is using a different tactic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you make of the, I don't want to say rumor, or what Richter talked about on your show about the maybe future coming out of Bob Gimlin, what he told Russell Accord about
Oh yeah, that's
what could be going on there.
that's all been settled.
Okay.
Yeah. No such thing ever happened, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like, yeah, I dove into that one head first, and it turned out to be a nothing burger, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Bob, there's no Bob confession.
Okay.
And I know, I mean, I hate to say 100%, so I always throw the word virtually in front of that. Virtually 100% chance that that's not going to happen. And I just know that on so many levels. Even though, I mean, I've never met Bob, I've never talked to Bob, but I have enough avenues around there that I know that, pretty much know that for a fact, that that's all BS. And
Okay.
that was between Russell Accord, Richter, and Steve Coles. And that's all that was. That was some personal BS between those three guys that has no business out in the Bigfoot world as a Bob confession at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah. So yeah, not true. Just not true. You know, and Richter would disagree with me, but that's fine. I mean, Richter's kind of jaded. He's a little jaded, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm jaded with people and their stories. So, you know.
No, I mean, I get that, but again, man, when you when you really get to know some of these people and you talk to them, and sometimes you ask them about their story over and over again, and they're very consistent. Like, man, at some point, dude, your heart, I hate to say this, dude, because people could easily flip the script and say you're too emotionally invested, so you're falling for BS. And I'm like, well, I don't know. You talk to the guy here. You know, it's not that simple. You know, do I think my friend Joe is batshit crazy? Hell no. He's a good, hardworking dude, man, that had just stared one of these things in the face. Is he lying to me? Definitely not. Is he batshit crazy? I don't think so. You know, it kind of puts you in a weird position, especially when you follow it up with, well, there's 10,000 more people behind Joe that have the same exact kind of story, right?
Right.
And so I'm not trying to be emotional. This is all actually very logical to me, to go, well, people I know and trust are telling me things that, you know, that tell, you know, that show me the phenomena is it's validation. The phenomena is real. I can't say what it is. Yeah, they look like primates. Sure. Maybe they're from planet Hairtron, right? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. During this whole time, the only thing I came up with that was in the paranormal range was some of the guys that I did interviews that were arrested in the grows.
Mhm.
Was I would ask them, hey, anything strange that you saw during your entire time there?
Mhm.
And twice I got the answer of strange lights in the sky.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And every time I was hoping I would get, hey, we saw a gorilla or we saw a
Yeah.
chimp, we saw
Right.
something like that. But
Yeah.
no, it was always strange lights in the sky.
And that's its own phenomena, right?
Right.
It is like it's easy for me to separate that from Bigfoot. The whole let's say just say UFO thing has been around, for quite some time, even before Bigfoot. Because Bigfoot really blew up like in the '60s, after the Patterson Gimlin film.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when it like started going into pop culture, and it didn't take long um, for it to become complete pop culture. $6 Million Man, versus Bigfoot in what 74, 76, I think it was, like not even 10
Yes.
years later. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it didn't surprise me at all that some of the guys you busted would say that, like, that was their strange thing. Either because they couldn't interpret what they were seeing, or there was actually something, kind of UFO going on, you know.
Yeah. And that is totally true. That
Yeah.
is totally true. And you know what? On that same note, uh, even with the cops, I had a couple guys tell me about strange lights in the sky. That was the only thing I picked up from the other side, you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
So,
and we see, and so like transpose that on what we see today with the United States DOJ admitting, like, they're showing footage, gun cam footage from
right.
fighter jets, and admitting we don't know what we're looking at there. So I mean that's an admission, right? If some disclosure.
Right. Right.
I mean, dude, for the most powerful nation on the earth, the most powerful military to ever exist on the earth, openly admit we don't know what we're looking at there, dude. That was a big moment for me. I was
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Especially when it leads to congressional hearings.
yeah, yes. I mean, like real oversight, if you will. I mean, say what you want about Congress, like, but for Congress to actually be, talking about it and interviewing, talking to DOJ officials in a very serious way and asking them real questions, like, I'm sorry, dude, that's leaps and bounds from where we were 10 years ago, much less 40,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So that it's a very interesting example of eventually, government's not so big and bad. We have this thing called the Constitution. Eventually you can kind of rattle the cage to where you'll get some kind of answers. It might take you 30 years, it might take you 20 years, it might take you 5 years, right? But government isn't such the big bad boogeyman that that they're God. Government's not God, right?
Right. Right. And, you know, I don't think that, I mean, to be the biggest agency would be the Department of Interior. I'm not so sure that they even know anything. I mean,
Me
but again,
neither.
I mean, I was just a guy on the ground, so I wasn't up in the management levels. Um, yeah.
Well, I've me and my buddy Ernie have always suspected that it's only the most boots on the ground guys that would have any real knowledge. That it would have to be them, and they would compartmentalize it to some degree, because like those are good careers, right? Like like Department of Interior, Wildlife Management, those are sought after careers. They're great. I mean, they pay like $60,000-$70,000 a year, and with great retirement benefits and all that stuff. Like, why would anybody blow that over? I think I saw a Bigfoot thing. Like, why would, like, it's not important enough for them to blow their career over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if they went to their supervisor, and maybe their supervisor, maybe they had some knowledge, it's got to stop somewhere. I imagine that supervisor goes, has that talk like, look, man, I get what you saw. Here's the thing. Do yourself a favor. Just let it go. It's not worth diving into any further. Right? Like, you got a good career. You got a great retirement package. Do you want to screw that up? Like, that's all it would take for that person to go, yeah, you're right. Like, it ain't that important to me. I don't feel like I need to go running to the first media outlet that probably doesn't even want to have anything to do with me, because at the end of the day, what do they have? A story. That's it.
Right.
So is a story worth ruining your entire career over? Absolutely not.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct.
And the other way I look at it is like, so again, people think in their head, the government. So that means the government, right? The big bad boogeyman of the entire government. It's like, okay, so we have a secretary for the Department of Interior, which changes every 2 to 4 to 6 years, roughly, because
Yes.
those are appointed by the administrations. So administration changes, they might just fill that void, 2 years, they might do the entire 4, they might do 6 years, you know what I mean? Because they're appointed. And it's like, so that's constantly changing. And I'm like, do you think that the Secretary of Department of Interior knows anything about Bigfoot? And then I always use the example of, whoever the hell was Secretary of Department of Interior under Trump. I was like, do you think Trump could keep his mouth shut about that? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
there's no way. So for these people that think that Bigfoot knowledge just goes straight to the top, I'm sorry, that's just not reality. It can't be. That's just not the world we live in. To me, I'm speaking for myself. Like, I understand government and how it works. Like, no way, dude. You don't even know what you're talking about if you think that kind of knowledge goes straight to the top.
Yeah. And people give government way too much credit.
Yep, I agree.
We're not that efficient.
The government's like pretty damn efficient in some areas, but not a lot of others, right?
No.
Yeah. No. I mean, come on. I mean, the United States government definitely has its like niche for efficiency, right? But even then, it can be unpredictable, because I mean, dude, at the end of the day, as highly trained as you might be, you're still a person. So you're vulnerable to everything that people are vulnerable to, even if you're just having a bad day, right? It's like the government ran by people, not automaton robots,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. No, it was amazing, the documentation and paperwork required just to request extra flight time, on certain days because we had a certain budget that we had to stick to. And man, it was like, parting the sea to get just 1 hour of extra flight time. It's that's why I say the government is not that efficient.
Right. As opposed to let's say a scenario where somebody feels extra flight time is extremely important to the mission, right?
Right.
And they just grab the pilot by the shoulder and we're keeping this bird in the air for another hour, and that's what we're doing. Instead, you're like, and then by that time, whatever you were even looking for is like they bolted. It's like, it's like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, dude. Like I love I'm a World War II buff. And back then, man, those guys just made decisions. They didn't have to file a bunch of paperwork to go, shoot the artillery that way, like.
Oh yeah, that was a totally different world then.
Completely different, and now everything in the government's bureaucracy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you can't take a whiz without filling out paperwork, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to answer to 3 people just to go to the bathroom, right? I mean,
Oh.
it's almost that ridiculous.
It is. It is. I experienced it firsthand. I mean, it really is. A lot of the time, we just bought our own gear because it was such a pain in the ass to request gear through the supply channels.
Wow.
Yeah, we just say, you know what? I'm just buying my own gear. It just, but by the time it got to you, it would be the end of the season. So a lot of guys you would see, that's their own gear they bought. It's just.
Ooh, are you talking weapons related? Any of that?
No. Just web gear. Shoes, uniforms we could not do much with because those are pretty strictly related, and where you would put the patches on, identifying yourself as police. No, that was, I mean, you did not stray from that regulation because there's legal consequences to it. If you would get into a shooting incident saying, well, I didn't see, the police marking or something like that.
Right. Because it wasn't on the right place. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't on the right thing. But, regular web gear, maybe backpacks,
boots.
We could sidetrack a little. Shoes we could. Let me see what else. But yeah, a lot of that gear. Oh, weapons? No way. That was just, there's no way you could bring your personal weapon in. I mean,
right. So that was all standard issue, no matter what.
Oh, it had to be standard issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything from the weapon to the ammunition. You could not go out and buy, your own ammunition. There's just no way.
Right. Can you talk about some of the weaponry that was involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much standard issue. I mean, it's the M4s or, the short version of the AR-15s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the sidearms were Glocks. Pretty boring.
Keep going, man. Give me the rundown, man. Yeah, I mean, I want to hear from the knives, the sidearms, like throughout the ARs up into the higher caliber bolt actions. Like, yeah, give me the rundown. Whatever you can tell me.
Yeah, you know what? It was the M4s, the short versions, the AR-15s, the Glocks, knives. That was a personal choice. Believe it or not, a lot of guys didn't carry them. So you saw a variety of knives. The most useful knives, believe it or not, were just the small little Swiss knives, because they had so many little accessories you could use. Yeah, believe it or not, the most important thing was your cutting tool to cut down the marijuana plants with.
Right.
Yeah, personally, I never got into any armed confrontation out there at all. Never even came close.
Right.
Most of the guys heard the noise and the helicopters coming in, and they would just run, and we would never find them. And they usually could run faster than us, move faster than us, because we had all this gear. And remember, they were living out there for months, so they could outrun us any day of the week. I mean, the only time we ever caught anyone was when they were sleeping in their tents.
Sure.
Yeah. So armed encounters were very, very rare. I mean, extremely rare. Because most of the guys just ran.
Well, sure. I mean, that makes sense, dude. I mean, you're outnumbered, you're outgunned. I mean, what's the point of protecting somebody else's grow? Even even if it was your own, whatever. It's like, yeah. What's the point in risking your life? Because I mean, you're not, dude. You get into a gunfight with 10 law enforcement agents, and you start putting up a fight. Well, an hour later, there's going to be 30 more there. So it's like, what's the point,
Yeah. No, armed encounters were so rare. I mean, God, probably in 3 years, I heard of one, and it didn't involve camp. It involved some Santa Clara deputies stumbling onto a grow, and they surprised some guys. But as far as camp, I can't think of one.
Right. Was anybody armed with Barrett 50 cows?
No. No.
And I get that. There's no reason for that. Like, why you wouldn't need to shoot anybody from half a mile away, right?
Right. Once in a while, depending on what county you were in, the SWAT team was the one designated to do the raid, and I don't remember any bolt actions or anything like that, because it usually required a long hike.
Yeah.
In early morning or at night, early morning at night. So they didn't have the time to set up a sniper hide or anything like that. I'm sure it happened in other regions, but I never saw it.
At this point, man, I'm just kind of picking your brain about.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Like, cool stuff that I've never been involved with. I mean, I'm a gun guy, and I just.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah.
I'm a big gun guy.
Yeah.
It's funny because the National Guard were not authorized to carry any long guns at all.
Huh.
They were authorized to carry the Beretta 92, but they could not have a round in the chamber.
Oh God.
Yes.
There's so many things wrong with that, man.
Yeah, because they were so scared of a shooting incident involving the Guard, because that would be bad.
I get
PR.
that.
It would be bad PR of the military engaging in armed confrontation on domestic soil, even though it would have been justified. But the National Guard is a component of the U.S. Army.
Yep.
So they didn't want that twist in the media saying that, the U.S. Army now is shooting people in the forest. They just didn't want that.
Yeah, and I don't blame them because to be honest with you, I don't want that either.
Yeah.
You know, but it just sucks that that you train guys that might actually end up in a foreign territory where their damn rounds should be always loaded. They should always be ready to rock, right? That you train that out of them almost on domestic soil kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah, and again, they were there for support only. So,
Yeah,
um, well, that's one thing I found about the National Guard. They were always very public image, paranoid. I would say almost. They just didn't want that
yeah,
publicity of being involved in a shooting incident.
yeah, and I don't think that should ever happen. Like, I don't want them to be involved in a shooting incident either. That's
Yeah.
that could turn into a real big deal real quick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Heads would roll up and down that chain of command you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Why were they there? Why this? Why that? Was the area secured prior to them going in, or did somebody go rogue and decided to become part of the raid operation? It's just, yeah.
Sure. But at the end of the day, man, it's like there's a lot of people in this country that would be up in arms about it just because it was a major constitutional violation in an egregious way that fits their sort of worldview, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean that stuff's worth avoiding. Just like the idea of Bigfoot kill teams. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think it would take? What would it take? I mean, being a actual person that have been on like sort of operations. I mean, I know you're not a Navy SEAL.
No,
at least I don't think you are. You said you did 4 years in the military, so yeah.
No, you know what? In the military, I did aircraft maintenance.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and
what kind of aircraft?
I did it on A6 intruders.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah. And you know what? Just a side note, I did an entire 4 years in the Navy without touching a weapon.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah.
Holy shit, you worked on intruders?
Yeah, I worked in intruders.
So you've seen Tomcats.
I've seen them, yes.
You've been around Tomcats.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Maintenance nightmares. I felt sorry for those guys.
Yeah, trying to unjam the flaps.
Those aircraft were down more than any other aircraft on the boat. I mean, they flew the least of any aircraft on the boat just because of issues.
I'm getting okay. So I don't even care about Sasquatch anymore. We'll come back to it, but okay. I have to go down this road with you, man. I'm sorry, I can't resist. You've been around Tomcats.
Yes.
So what do you think about the romanticism around Tomcats? Which obviously is, mostly because of Top Gun. But, I mean, the Tomcat was a beautiful plane. Like, it looked gorgeous in the sky. I don't know, man. So what do you think about the romanticism around Tomcat?
Oh, you know what? I think it's totally deserved. It is one of the best looking planes out there. It doesn't have the cinematic presence that the F-18 has. The Tomcat has it. It has the looks. It has the lines. It's just a beautiful plane. Just a beautiful plane.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, it was a maintenance nightmare. Now, I didn't work on it, but we worked on the same hangar deck as those guys did, and those planes flew less than any other plane.
But those were the planes that were supposed to protect the carrier.
They always manage to barely meet the minimum operational requirements, but man, those guys, the maintenance crews, work their ass off. Literally work their ass off. My hat to them, man. My hat's off to them.
Well, maybe that's why at the end of the day they got rid of them. I guess instead of there's a whole group of people that were like, man, they should have made the whatever third or fourth gen of the Tomcat, the Tomcat E, I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
They should have made that plane, and there's a whole lot of political reasons. But maybe at the end of the day, dude, that some of those political reasons that the generals or the admirals and the DOJ people were like, maybe they were getting those maintenance reports that just were overwhelming of like, nah, it ain't worth it.
Remember, the first Tomcats flew the Combat Air Patrol in 1975 during the fall of Saigon. The very first squadrons deployed flew in 1975 during the last hours of the Vietnam War.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, the first Tomcat like wartime deployment.
Yeah, the old A models.
Yeah, like fresh off the line, A's,
Yeah.
With their weird markings.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just look at the opening credits of the first Top Gun versus the opening credits of the second one, and you could automatically tell the presence is not the same.
Well, okay, so I have not seen the second one yet. I haven't seen Maverick yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers, but you will see the difference. You'll be like,
well, there are. Okay, I don't know if you know this or not. There are Tomcats flying in this world, but they're all Iranian Tomcats.
Yes.
So there are zero flying Tomcats in the entire rest of the world. They have all been taken apart and put in museum pieces. There are no parts on them because they were literally afraid that Iranians would infiltrate a boneyard to steal parts to refresh their Iranian Tomcats. The military was literally afraid of that. Did you know that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's why we don't get F-14s at air shows, which we should have. We should have flying F-14s. Like it's bullshit. We don't. Total bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
We have flying P-51s, right? I mean, come on. We can't have some like 10 F-14s to go to air shows. No, because the Iranians might steal the parts that they've already learned the Russians learned how to
re-engineer them.
Yeah, re-engineer them. I mean, it's like, dude, 70s, 80s technology, right? And so there are Tomcats flying over Iran tonight as we speak. And so the whole F-14 community that's in love with Tomcats, like they have this special place for Iran in their heart because Iran's still flying F-14s. I mean, isn't that crazy, dude?
That is crazy. I don't know which model they have. Is it the A, B, or D?
Duh, I don't think it's not the D. I mean, this goes back to the Shaw, so late 70s.
Probably A and B's, probably.
Yeah, A's and B's at the most.
Wow.
But again, that technology, right, in 2022, the spare parts, not hard to reverse engineer.
Not these days.
And so the point is that they still fly them. They still fly these Tomcats to this day. And so for the movie, there are no there's no actual tomcat flying in the air. And again, I haven't seen the movie. I do know that, correct me if I'm wrong, that Mav and Goose's son, who the character, I don't know the character's name, they go up against a Su-57.
Correct.
In a F-14.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not real. I mean, number one, where'd they get a Su-57? Like,
it's all CGI, all of it.
So that whole sequence is CGI.
It's all of it CGI.
Well, you know what? I mean, that's the only way it could be done.
Yeah, they did a good job of it, but you could still tell.
They made it look as natural as they could.
As they could.
Okay. As opposed to all the F-18 shots that were really shot with real F-18s and Blue Angel pilots flying them and all that.
Yes.
All right. Well, I kind of knew that just because I knew there's no way they could get a Su-57 to fly like for a shot, and there's no way they could get an F-14 to fly for a shot, because you would literally have to go to Iran and Russia to fly those planes together to make that shot.
That is, yeah. That's what you would have to do. Yeah. And you would have to convince the Iranians to repaint the airplane.
You repaint the airplane, yes. And so, wow, that's cool, dude. Like, man, I never knew this discussion would go here. And I don't care. I don't care that we've gotten off Sasquatch and started talking about tomcats and aircraft carriers and intruders. Man, I appreciate your service, dude. I know that was a tough job. I contemplated getting into the Navy at one point, and I was like, I'll pass.
Yeah, it was an adventure for sure. Like I said, I didn't do anything that really cool in there. You say Navy these days and everybody thinks you're a Navy SEAL. No,
definitely not. Navy SEALs almost never touch aircraft carriers.
Oh, no. You know what? It's funny because I never even knew one or met one or saw one. So
yeah, and they almost never touch Navy ships, actually. There are times, but yeah. When you go the what was it, the Somali thing?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Captain, what's his name? Come on, chat. Captain what? It was the Somali hijacking, and they put some Navy SEALs on board that ship.
Yeah,
and and obviously that worked out. So the snipers,
right?
Yeah. I can't remember Captain. Never mind. I'm having way too much fun with this, man. Like, I can do this all night long, and I gotta start wrapping it up soon. But
okay, I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah, sure.
AR-15 or AK platform?
Okay, so if you're talking about the AK-47 versus
that mechanism.
Yeah, like, so the AK 100% confirmed, man. It is a huge muzzle climb, as opposed to an AR-15. So a 223 or 5.56 versus a 7.62 in those, like, say, like that, like, your Afghani FK AK, right? Huge muzzle climb, which requires a compensator, and I don't even know how much good that does. Compensator probably does some good to reduce muzzle climb. So yeah, the vertical muzzle climb off AK is horrible. It is not reliable at all. Now, with the 7.62 round, you need a longer barrel, more of a SKS fashion, like a DMR.
Mm-hmm.
You could even put like a 4x optic on it, like 4x scope, DMR, longer barrel. So we're talking like 18, maybe longer. And man, that's a good round. So 7.62 is a great round in the DMR, even though you still get a lot of bullet drop. So you have to arc. You still have to arc it at certain distances, but man, the 5.56 is so zippy. It's almost. I mean, it's like at 200 yards, it's just still going straight. You know what I mean? Like obviously there's going to be bullet drop there, but it's so fast that you don't have to compensate with your optic much. So yeah, that's what I think about those rounds. AK, not a good AR unless you're 30 feet away from somebody. Then you're gonna like completely destroy them, obviously. But yeah, like I mean, AR battles happen more like a couple hundred yards. That's a close AR battle, right?
Right.
The M4 is gonna just shred you. The AKs kind of whiz over your head. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the new M5, the new SIG replacement in 277 Fury?
I have not seen that. I can't even wrap my head around the 277 that you're throwing at. Like,
yeah, you know what? I'll send you a couple links, and because SIG just got the contract to replace the M4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so a brand new round.
Brand new round, brand new rifle.
New AR round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you a couple links. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a bunch of 5.56 that's going to go in the market soon for super cheap.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Cool, man. Great conversation. I'm gonna wrap it up. I mean, screw.
Okay. Sound good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we talked about what we were talking about. Obviously, man, I'm trying to make. The only point I'm trying to make is that there's major operations going on out in Sasquatch territory that aren't ever showing anything. Like, people aren't finding Sasquatch that you and I know of, right? And you were in the loop.
Correct.
You were in the loop.
As much as I was in that specific area.
Correct. Fair enough. But still, it's kind of interesting that, that kind of activity goes on there. And again, my point to that is compare that to the weekend Sasquatcher that, well, I get activity all the time. Well, how come the big kids don't? Like, they have all the cool stuff, and you'd think they would run into them. It's kind of a head scratcher. I can't answer that question. There could be a great reason why, or it could be, damning to the whole phenomena. I don't know, but I just thought it important to have that conversation with somebody who I trust and was actually there and could describe it in real time in a real way. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, like I said, I wish I had more exciting Black Ops stuff, but
it's okay. That's okay, because to be honest with you, I'm glad you don't, because I don't know that I'd feel comfortable bringing that on my show. Like, I'd rather have this real discussion than, talk about Kandahar giants.
Right.
Like, you want to talk to me about how you were there when the Kandahar giants attacked the squad, and I'm probably just going to dismiss you outright. Like, nope, you're nuts. I don't want to talk to you. So.
That is a good story, but yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, one 30 millimeter grenade, under barrel grenade launcher, pretty much going to take care of that Kandahar giant. And military guys don't mess around with that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. But yeah, man, dude, shit, I could talk planes with you all night. Yeah, I might bring you on just for a plane discussion.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, I want to know what it's like to be on, like, just see one, like, with your own eyes take off from a fucking carrier or even land. Like, that stuff fascinates me, dude. Like, quickest way to my heart, start talking fast movers, you know?
Fast movers, yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool, dude. Thanks for
All right.
coming on. I'm going to wrap it up. I got to go to work tomorrow.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, man. And
hopefully I provided some type of information towards this mysterious, elusive subject.
Hey, you know what? I'll say this. You brought something to the table. And I tried to like have a good discussion about what you have to bring to the table. And I don't know, man, you know, in the Bigfoot world, like, some people will appreciate that. Some people will yawn at it because again, it wasn't sexy enough, right? Like, it's like, oh man, I thought this guy like killed one and dragged one into the Black Ops warehouse where I get to learn about what happens to dead Bigfoot. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we're just talking about real world stuff and how it can relate to Sasquatch. So, hey, I had fun. And
me too.
Again, I want to keep this conversation going in a different direction, man. So maybe I'll have you on a Sunday or something. We'll do a special Sunday non-Sasquatch show and talk about freaking airplanes, man. Because I didn't even know that about you, Drew. I had no idea, man, that you were involved in that kind of stuff. So
yeah, well, you know what? Most people find it boring. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't.
When you turn wrenches on an aircraft, it's nothing exciting. I mean, you know.
Yeah. And until they're needed, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, until they're needed. So I mean, I'm on board with that, dude. Like, I'm all about, like, hey, this intruder did its job. It did a great mission. Hey, man, part of that mission is the maintenance crew, because that intruder never could have done that job without their maintenance crew. So I'm all about that, dude.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, just let me know. I'm in.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna do a hard ending here, man. We're just gonna wrap it up. Thanks everybody for watching. I don't apologize that we went in a different direction at the end there. I do what I want. And it was a good discussion. Glad to have you on, Drew. Glad you were here. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. And thanks for being here. Appreciate each and